owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note.
Doheny. The Dohenys. His family came from Ireland. They were running away from the Great Famine. A few years ago, Edward came to the city. This city. He would dig with picks and shovels. When he got deep enough, he'd use a eucalyptus tree trunk. Soon he made a fortune. Edward loved his son, Ned. As a wedding gift, Edward built him Greystone. Greystone. After 4 months, Ned died.
Do you feel better about that one?
Yeah? But if you want me to redo it, I'll do it again.
No, I think that was good.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that one a lot better. But if you still think it should be better, then I can do it one more time.
No, I think that's good.
Okay.
Alright, let's move on.
Okay. It was a Saturday. Ned's secretary, Hugh Plunkett, pulled up to the gates of Greystone. He was driving a dark blue Dodge Sport Cabriolet, dressed in a pinstripe suit and tie. Ned and his wife Lucy were in bedclothes. He stood to greet Hugh, who appeared nervous and upset. He guided his friend to the downstairs guest room to be alone. Hugh started to get upset. The two men argued, and Ned called Dr. Ernest Clyde Fishbow. The doctor arrived at Greystone at about 11. At the same time, Lucy heard a loud noise coming from the guest room downstairs. She said it sounded like an overturned piece of furniture. She told the doctor that Hugh was acting very disturbed and led him towards the guest room. Hugh slammed the door shut. Hugh was lying face down on the floor in front of the doorway. Blood was oozing from his skull. He had a lit cigarette in his left hand. Under his right was a still warm revolver. Ned was also lying on the floor, by the foot of the bed. A bullet had entered and exited his head through one temple to another, and there was some blood trickling from his mouth. Dr. Fishbow saw an armchair had been overturned. Edward was asleep in his bedroom at Chester Place when he received an urgent phone call. Just after midnight, on February 17th, he learned his son Ned had been killed. Dressing quickly, he sped down the dark streets of Los Angeles to Greystone. he saw the body of his son. Silently, he knelt beside the corpse and gently stroked its hand.
There were no witnesses to the actual shooting, but all of the witnesses belonged either to the family or to the household staff, with the exception of a prominent society physician. A sufficient lapse of time had passed between the actual shooting and the arrival of the authorities to allow the witnesses to recover their emotional equilibrium. The testimony dovetailed with remarkable accuracy. Briefly, it went something like this. The Plunkett had gone berserk. Then on hearing the shots, the witnesses had run towards the hallway which led to Dohany's bedroom, only to be met at the door by Plunkett. They retreated when he threatened to kill them. Plunkett had slammed the door, and a moment later they heard the shot which presumably ended his life. When the witnesses went and found the bodies, they retreated without disturbing anything.
From the notes of Leslie T. White, one of the first detectives to arrive at the scene. There were powder marks on Ned's temple, indicating he had been shot at a distance of less than 3 inches. White had found no such markings on Hugh, causing him to question which man had pulled the trigger. Forensics showed that Ned had been sitting in his chair when he was shot, causing the chair to fall backward. If Hugh had shot Ned, he would have had to shoot from waist level at an awkward angle. Also, the gun had no fingerprints. Ned was found lying on his back, but the blood that had congealed from his ears to his eyes could only have happened if he had been moved from lying on his stomach. Dr. Fishbow later confessed that though he had initially stated Ned was dead when he entered the guest room, Ned had lived for about 20 minutes after being shot. Other statements seemed rehearsed and artificial.
Mr. Fitz, I don't believe Hugh Plunkett killed Dohany and then committed suicide. At least it couldn't have happened in the manner as described by witnesses. Physical facts and the testimony of witnesses do not jive. I understand, too, that some people believe that the Dohany family are too influential to tamper with. There isn't a man in the United States big enough to stop me from conducting a criminal investigation.
But on Monday, February 18th, 1929, White's supervisor, Lucian Wheeler, issued a statement that beyond all doubt, Hugh had shot Ned in an insane frenzy, then taking his own life. It had not been 36 hours since the shooting occurred. So who killed Ned Dohany and Plunkett that night? We'll never know for sure. But we do know that Edward L. Dohany Sr. was responsible. Not only in the sense that Dohany had created the whole environment in which Ned grew up, the mansions, the private schools, the inherited fortune, but in the more particular sense that he had used his son and his son's friends to carry out the dirty business of bribery and deceit. Today, years later, it seems clear that Ned Dohany and Hugh Plunkett were victims of Dohany's ambition. No matter whose hand did the deed, it was Dohany's character that killed them. His egotism, his hubris. Through years of public virtue and private vice, Dohany had pursued property, oil, and above all, in a career that left many victims strewn in its path, of whom his son and his son's friend were merely the last.
Who said that?
Dan Labatz.
Do you know who that is?
No.
The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful big green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar, "Oh, lovely pussy, oh pussy, my love. What a beautiful pussy you are. You are, you are. What a beautiful pussy